This is like good stuff.
Like that. Recording in progress.
Recording in progress.
Yeah, John was the right person. For me, he was the right person at the time for what was happening with me. My trio was him and Dougie Roush. This was before George Duke came into the picture.
Wow. Yeah, John said that he had to buy a Les Paul Jr. for that gig because his 330 was feedbacking like crazy. He tried to tape the F-holes and everything.
I know. We had an interesting thing going, but George just tended to cement it, like immediately, like iron glue. As soon as he showed up, everything went kerplop. And we were in, And then Dougie, unfortunately, passed away, and we ended up with Alfonso, which is no loss at all. I had to learn how to play it in a completely different way.
Friends, he's a wonder, an enigma, a legend, and today, nearly now at 81 years young, a total miracle. I was astounded when I recently had the honor to watch him perform on March 18th, an incredible 1 hour, 20-minute set at the Blue Note, New York City, leading his timeless Time Machine Band. A cadre of renowned musical legends that now has spanned 7 decades, notably with Randy Brecker on trumpet and Willie on bass. I last had seen Billy perform at the Bottom Line in 1982 with his Glass Menagerie Band with a young Mike Stern on guitar. After 43 years, Billy was playing with the same relentless passion, ferocity, explosive technique, and above all, joy that has rightfully earned him the moniker, the gold standard of drumming, for over half-century. Fresh from leaving the U.S. Army in 1967, this Panamanian powerhouse practically invented fusion drumming, a new genre back then where he would make history by playing as Miles Davis's hand-selected drummer on the famous Bitches Brew sessions, and next in the original incarnation of the groundbreaking Mahavishnu Orchestra from 70 to 73. Billy would follow up these 2 legendary stints with his own Spectrum, an album that set a new standard for drums as being the predominant instrument in jazz fusion music. Recently, the great John Scofield credited Billy with first exposing him to the world of fusion music on the big stage through the Cobham Duke Band that helped him to gain the popularity that he still enjoys today. Throughout the years, after playing sessions on a plethora of musical recording projects and countless live touring as his own accomplished band leader, Billy has set the highest standard for amazing, jaw-dropping drumming by playing on his legendary gargantuan kits. In fact, he has transcended his own genre of music by greatly influencing the usage of his own signature kits, by passing it to renowned prog rock and metal drummers such as Bill Bruford, Neil Peart, and Danny Carey. Steve Huey of All Musicians stated, Cobham harnessed his amazing dexterity into thundering, high-octane hybrids of jazz complexity and rock and roll aggression. In 2001, after naming Billy one of the 25 most influential drummers, Modern Drummer magazine wrote, although there are many all-time greats, Billy Cobham is one of the very few who can truly be called a pivotal drummer in musical history. He changed the way we set up our drums and cymbals. He changed the way we play them. And he changed the way we play music. And he's still out there going strong. It's my great honor today to please welcome the great Billy Cobham. Billy, great to see you, man.
Pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Good, man. That's amazing. You took time to put all of that together? Good.
Yeah.
Okay,
my listeners and viewers want to hear that stuff, in the beginning. They really love it. Mm-hmm. Full disclosure, I'm not a drummer. Mm-hmm. I'm a guitar player, unfortunately. But I've been following.
We can stop there because I learned a lot of things that I didn't realize you guys do. And I salute you. It's about the reality of learning certain lines that are just even if you read, they would be very difficult to read on the instrument unless you did it over and over again and you had to find where the fingerings were and all of that. I get it now. And I just, I'm approaching 81 and probably I just learned this about 3 years ago. And I went, good God, yeah, when I stop and think about it, that's some amazing stuff because I'm writing stuff that's like horn lines for guitars. I'm hearing you guys play that. Then I realized, damn, they memorized the stuff, and then come back that, yes, I see, and you can make adjustments here or there. The changes are the same, all of that. Yeah, but that's putting in a lot of time. And I remember working with the late, great DJ Lockwood. He was a great violinist, saxophone player out of France. And man, when we had this band with Abercrombie, John Abercrombie ended up joining the band for a minute called String Quartet. Mm-hmm. And I wrote some things, and John said, I'm not going to be able to play that, man. I'm going, why? He says, I'm only here for a couple of days, and so I'm not going to put the time in to do that. I said, okay, well, let's simplify it. In the back of my head, I'm going, damn, I thought, oh, man. And I thought, leave it, watch, learn, see where it's going. Don't throw a blanket on it. There must be a reason, learn what that reason is.
Yeah.
And so there are many things that come out of disappointments in a way that make it not negative, but I'm glad we didn't do it then because it wouldn't have sounded the way I wanted it to sound, knowing that it wasn't in the fingers. Okay, but now that I hear it, I see how it could be much more easily presented to the player so that it could be under the fingers. I just learned something. It's that kind of situation. It just goes like that. Mm-hmm. You never, and I realized the lesson in this mm-hmm. is that nothing's ever wrong. It's just not exactly right for the time, for the slot right now. Mm-hmm. But it could be if we did X, Y, and Z. Let's see this. Next thing you know, you're playing this thing and you're going, well, it could be more than that. It could be so and so and so, and all of a sudden it expounds.
Yeah.
And you've got something else. You still keep what you had, but that's where it came from. So now you got both, and you sing it. Well, damn. Okay. So if that's true, then what about this? Bang. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah. Okay, and that's how life continues to go on, man.
That's right. Man, I want to hold that thought because I'm going to ask you about your composition soon because mm-hmm. I'm mind-boggled how you can compose melodies and arrangements and harmonic structures on a rhythm instrument. But I'm going to get back to that, man. You went to music and art when you came to New York. I went to High School of Art and Design. So you were at Castle on the Hill.
You know who went to High School of Art and Design?
Who?
You ever hear a guy named Clint Houston? He's a bass player.
Yeah.
But he went to Art and Design.
Wow.
He never went to music, and he studied with Chuck Israel. So a whole nother world.
Yeah,
and he was in the first jazz band that I was ever in. He was the artist, the painter who was doing that. Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Other artist that I know of that went to Art and Design was Lenny White, I think.
Lenny White did go to Art and Design.
There you go.
And believe it or not, Tony Bennett went to Art and Design. He graduated in 1946.
Wow. Where was I? Oh, yeah. No, I was on a boat trying to get up here.
You were 2 years
I
old.
had diapers on. I was making a mess over everything in the boat.
You just got your first drum kit in 1946.
In a certain way, yes.
Oh, we're going to go into a little more into that.
Why did I pay?
You paid all right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure. I'm really curious. We're going to hit on that. This cat who I played with back in 1980, he was Henry Adler's pet student.
Okay.
Henry Adler gave him the keys to the castle, basically. And he says, you got to check out this guy, Billy Cobham. He says, he's like, it's maddening. So I checked him out. I've been a fan ever since.
I see.
But, so even though I'm a guitar player, I just love I love great drumming. So
do you remember the name of this guy? What was his name?
Yeah. Ahsoka Compton. He's an Indian
Wow.
dude. Ahsoka Compton. I don't know whatever happened with the guy. He came in 1980. We had a studio over at the Music Building on 38th Street and 8th Avenue. And he came into an audition and with this huge kit. Double bass was like very novel to me back then, to see a double bass kit. He walked in with it, and then he did a ritual. He like cut his arm and put a dot of blood on each drum before he played.
Oh, boy.
Hey, boy is right.
Who am I to say? What can I say?
Exactly. Who am I to say? I make no judgments over the whole thing. But Bill, you're nearly 81, and drums are such a highly physical instrument. Yet your energy and current level of playing, not only at 80, but at any age, is mind-boggling to me. How have you kept up your chops and conditioning to such a high level all these years?
Some things you learn, and it's at the seat of everything you do. So it's not about forgetting it. It's like, this is every day. We have thousands of shows over the past 80 years in my life. Some things, no matter what I choose to do or how I end up sounding at the end of a tour, if this is just one date and I know I need to put certain tunes together to work me through this one commitment, I'm going to play those patterns that fit. Rudimentally, synchronistically, all of those things are just they decide who I am. So I play that, and it hasn't to do just sticks going up and down. It's how it goes up and down, the mechanics of performance, which starts with how you sit down as a kid.
Wow.
You got to sit down at the drum set properly, otherwise you can't play it. You've got to have your legs. I have to have my legs fixed at a certain angle to control my feet, the bass drums as I play, so that I can get on the left side to my hi-hat. Or if I had my second hi-hat on the right side, it has to be comfortable for me so I can go in and out as and when I want to. I have to be able to, because I think ambidextrously. I'm not an naturally ambidextrous person. I had to work at it, but the whole objective is to be able to go right from left to right and from right to left when I want to. When I hear the combination of sounds, instrument, not just drums, but which drum, which cymbal, hi-hats, everything has a reason. It's not how fast, it's what combination you play. Okay? So it's a lot of the big phrase is multitasking. It's a lot of things you do at once that you have to continue to think about.
In other words, be the octopus. Be an octopus.
Well, you could look at it in that way too, yeah. But when a manta ray is pissed off at you, it doesn't try to come and gobble you up. It'll sting your ass, and it'll come at you. And meanwhile, the stinger is coming from around it on the back end, either top or bottom, and he's gonna get you because he's already got that all sorted out. And he's looking from one eye on this side on the right, absolutely 90 degrees on the other side, 180 degrees on the other side. Somehow he knows. That's
spoken like a true Panamanian.
Ah, sí, senor.
I see you've been around the sea for quite a bit.
Bit.
You know what I find interesting, Billy, is that you first started playing drums at the age of 3 or 4. I was reading in Panama. You joined your father's band at 8. But you didn't get your first drum kit until you came to New York City at 15 before you were accepted into the High School of Music and Art.
Right.
Tell us how you were able to develop your skills between ages 4 through 15 without a drum kit.
Being my family, being my mother especially, being members of a church congregation in the church, the youngsters especially on the Saturday or Sundays, they had things that they could do at church. And one of them was to join the Cub Scouts or the Boy Scouts, this kind of thing. And the Scouts had a little, what they called drum corps. And the drum corps was like learning how to play on a drum. And it was learning how to work together as a group. Okay, and we stumbled all over each other. We really didn't care at our age. We wanted to be the best, quote unquote, a player that ever held a drumstick at our age, no matter what. We were better than everybody else, and that's what we strove for because we didn't know any better. Okay, yeah. But what's important is that the teacher in all of this was our mistakes. Our mistakes was like, well, that's not working. I better try something else because Mom, they don't like what I'm doing and boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Yeah, and Mom would say, well, just keep trying and you'll find your way. Started to hook up with kids who had the same problem. They didn't talk about it. We just sit down and try to work it out together. Now we're talking about working together to achieve a common goal. Then there were contests,
here we go.
Here you go. So it wasn't about how well one of us played, but it was about how well 3 of us played, or 2 of us together. And if you heard flams in between the notes, they were ticked off as mistakes. And because the objective was to play with your partner, exactly with your partner. And over time, it didn't take long, going through this and getting a little award, some kind of a cup or something like that, said winner of or came in second or third. Eventually, you could see the difference, just playing. Certain patterns, not just marches in the Northern Hemisphere. The heavy was what was happening around the equator and south. And that was where the whole Latin thing started to happen. Okay. And the next thing you know, you started to add those patterns and you're marching and a drum corps like the Police Athletic League, PAL, something or other, is playing something akin to Pontiano, boom, chicka gong, chicka gong, chicka gong, gong, chicka gong, just to walk in silence, to keep in time, keep it in sync. All of a sudden, everybody, man, we're dancing to that. Chicka doom, chicka gong, chicka doom.
Yeah.
Get bright uniforms and shake go heads with the plumes in the top and kids are going, I want to be just like them, you know, and I want to do. And next thing you know, they're listening more carefully, and things are lining up. You know, now they get this groove, then it's big bada doom bam doom bam doom doom bam no body do bam boom doom bam doom bam do they do and the horns are playing this thing, and you go, man, we got to be like them. They'll win and that's it. You know, it's growing, and you don't even know that you hooked on something that you always had in you. It's just that the key is turning by a notch at a time the lock to open that door.
What an amazing developmental environment that you
and we're born into it.
You were born in this unique environment, because not many kids can say that they were nurtured like this at such a young age through Corpse.
Yeah, that's one. That's just North America, or Latin America. Can you imagine in places like Fiji, Polynesia, where the drums are very rare as a drum, because actually it's a tree, and they open the inside and bore it out, and it has and more than one person plays this tree that's parallel on an angle to you, so you're 90 degrees, and you're playing with two log bars, boop 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 boop, and depending on the size of the tree and where you're playing on the tree, you got this sound, man.
Wow.
And it's been cut a certain way to provide that sound. So now there's a science to that. But what doesn't change is this.
Yeah.
And it's still happening. And here's your tempo. Never went anywhere. And people are dancing to it.
Yeah.
Next thing, you know, so you're what? We're talking Polynesia. Okay, let's take Hawaii. Farthest island, man, Bishop or so, we're talking, maybe 7,000 miles away from New York City, you know.
It's where I was born.
World, yeah. And these are the guys who, rain, hurricane, everything else, are paddling across the Pacific Ocean to one island to the other, maybe 1,500 miles.
Yeah,
I don't get it, you know. And then they write about this. They don't write. They sing about this, or they're putting their backs into this thing.
Yeah.
Maybe 30 guys on both sides of the boat canoeing out in tempo, singing.
That's incredible. You know, just thinking about it.
Miles, man.
And have you heard some amazing drummers in Pacific Islander nations? Have you?
Not that I could name right off the top of my head. I just heard the music, and I haven't heard it near enough. But all due respect, it's another world, man.
Yeah,
it's another world.
The culture changes who you become, and the player that you become. It's so integral. I can see that because I've traveled around the Pacific Islands. I've been to French Polynesia.
Yes.
And it's really, really astounding to watch this stuff going on, like the percussionists.
Sure. And then my daughter was the head of the Peace Corps in Fiji, in Suva, and to see and hear the music.
Oh, so you know.
The voices, the singing. Oh, man, tears to my eyes. And I just go, I mean, that feeling, it's just coming from the bodies and they're vibrating. Whoa, right. Oh my. Big people. People.
I was listening at the dock to these beautiful singers in French Polynesia.
Yes.
In Tahiti, you know, before we were catching the plane. And it really just so moving, you know.
I bet.
And I know, Billy, that this is why you're such a musical drummer, because you had that upbringing. And then the contests actually helped you to excel, because everyone, you know, wants to be the best. And that was instilled at a very young age for you. Mm-hmm. So, you know.
Those experiences are, I used to help me project my inner feelings.
Wow.
That's what they're there for. That's what I feel.
Yeah. But what's really amazing is the way that you took all of this rudimentary upbringing and culture and applied it to new musical forms, particularly hybrid forms such as fusion music, jazz fusion.
Yes.
And you happened also to be in the right place at the right time, I suppose.
Yes, I was very lucky. Very lucky.
Right.
Very fortunate.
Hey, and then after you get out of high school, a few years later, you join the U.S. Army.
Yes.
And you play in the U.S. Army from 1965 to 1968.
Yes.
How did that help develop your drumming? Did that really help you?
Sure, every day, but it's not just but not from the position only of what I heard and how I interpreted what I heard, but it was from what I saw and how I interpreted those images and transferred those concepts, those ideas visually to the patterns that I play.
Wow. And then out of the U.S. Army, is that where you got the Horace Silver gig right out of the Army?
Yeah, I got out at the end of January, I think.
68.
In 68, and maybe 2 weeks later, I was on the road with Horace. Yeah.
My God. How'd you get that gig?
But, I mean, it wasn't as if I was unknown. I had by then I had a strong resume, having worked with then Billy Taylor, who was not a doctorate in music at all. He was a disc jockey on WLIB in Harlem, and a great one. And he just had so much knowledge, and his position was highly respected, man. I mean, the things that used to happen there. Everybody listened for a short period of time to WLIB in Harlem, because it had a very short a connection that you could hear it. It was smack in the middle of a lot of other stations, so you had to be very touchy about how you got LIB between ballpark, say around 4 o'clock in the afternoon until around 8 o'clock in the evening. Then it would just disappear, and because it was that small. Right. But on that station, you could hear advertisements for Miles Davis. There was no Birdland after. By the time I was there, Birdland opened up later in the years, back in the mid-'70s, again, but at a different location, which it is now in the same place. But there was Half Note, Hudson Street, Blue Note, 3rd Street. Five Spot, I think it was on 3rd, and 3rd on 5 Spot was on 3rd and 3rd Avenue or something like this, I think. And then Slugs in the Far East, which is like on 8th Street, Avenue A in Alphabet City, and then so that was just that. What was ending at the time that I joined Horace was I was in the last jazz club on 52nd Street, of which there was at least at one point in time in its highlight times on 52nd Street, you had 4 or 5 clubs between like First Avenue, 4 or 5 clubs between First Avenue and Second Avenue, Second Avenue and Third Avenue, Third Avenue, Fourth Avenue, Fourth Avenue. Third Avenue in Lexington. Lexington and Park, there were clubs. Park, and this is just on 52nd Street. All the way across to 11th Avenue, there were clubs. The Red Parrot, and bands were playing in all these different places and would be swapped from one club to the other. And it was 52nd Street was just jazz, period.
I cannot even imagine. What a time.
On that second, huh?
What a time.
So everybody was working on 52nd Street, aside from what was happening up in Harlem at the Cotton Club. aside from what was happening in the village, it was like everybody was working, man. And then, I mean, that was just clubs.
Yeah.
And then there were speakeasies. And then after the speakeasies, if you ever even got out of the speakeasy, because there's some great stories about some of these cats going into a speakeasy on Friday and so blown away that, I mean, after the gig that they had played that night, that they'd still be in the speakeasy on Saturday, Sunday, and sleeping, sometimes with their instrument in their hands. So when everybody came in on a Monday night, which was a dark night, after playing a play, they just wanted to hang. These guys would get up and start to play the same tune that they were playing on Friday. Not even remember. Yeah.
Oh,
so yeah, there's a lot of legendary stuff happening in New York City alone. Nobody had to leave New York. You played the half note for 4 weeks.
Wow.
Before you broke for about 3 or 4 days and flopped over into the 5 spot, that's Hudson Street. Hudson Street was actually 8th Avenue.
Yeah.
5 spots on 3rd Avenue. So you just bang, and that was another 2 or 3 weeks. And then from there you would come back to the Blue Note. And so you would be playing New York City, and in the daytime you'd be doing jingles, doing commercials, blah 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 blah, or making records for somebody. At Prestige was the recording studio was in Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah,
and a lot of Gotham recording. Everybody was working, man.
So you were always working. You were working up in Harlem. You were working on 52nd Street. Mm-hmm. And this is like even like the year before you joined the Army, from 64 to 65.
No, the year before I joined the Army, I was working at the local dry cleaners shop in my in my neighborhood in South Jamaica, trying to earn a living to help my mother.
Right.
Yeah, that was it.
So all this was happening. You caught the tail end of the jazz clubs, like where it was very like, so you were like inundated with gigs, from 65 to 66.
And also what we missed was Arthur Lugoff's Village Gate, and we missed the Vanguard on 7th Avenue. Okay. So the Village Vanguard is still there. The Vanguard's still there. The Village Gate. The building is still there. I think that I don't know if the family still owns it, but there used to be the top of the gate,
right?
And then the Village Gate, the gate downstairs. And on the day, one of the most amazing days, I just read a book about that Ken Follett wrote called Zero, and it's about, in the end, how the Jupiter rocket was created and a whole spy thriller around that. That turns out that some of these things were true that went into this thing. What's special is that it spawned the launching of Apollo 11, okay? Which is Armstrong and all those cats. While that was happening, I was playing either with Mingus or at the top of the gate, Mingus, Junior Mance, or who was it? Or Phil Woods. Because there was a bunch of me, George Cables, a bunch of cats. Yeah. We all kind of were part of this Young Turks, so-and-so, loosely used young kids who would come and fill in for the pros. And I was working one of these gigs. Why I know this is because that's when, in that week, that's when I met Miles, and we're going to do the Bitches Brew sessions. Now downstairs. And that's how I met Miles. Miles's rhythm section was Jack DeJohnette, Dave Holland, and Chick Corea, along with him and Wayne Shorter. Jack had decided to leave Miles to work with Keith Jarrett. Came up to me and said, "You be up for playing with Miles?" I said, "Twist my arm, man." He said, "He'll probably come up here and take a look at you and say, if you say, I'll tell him to come and take a look at you, because I'm going to leave and go work with Keith." All that stuff happened as Neil Armstrong was putting his foot on the moon. Did you believe that, man?
Oh, so this is 69. This is later.
This is 69. That's
69.
when yeah, because I had already left. I had already left Horace. I did Horace for 10 months, and then that was it. I couldn't
So you
do
did
it.
Horace
I
for
couldn't
like the
afford
whole
to go out.
68, basically, right?
68. I was working with Horace all the time, and it was school every night, man. And not
Yeah.
just on the bandstand, but off the bandstand. Sometimes, you have one of us, uh, like John B. Williams and myself. We didn't have any money. We were earning what $200 a week, and we had to pay our own hotel room. You know, and the hotel room was $10, man, and that was $200 gross before he took out taxes. So whatever I got, and I had two kids back then, like an idiot, and it was trying to raise a family. Come on, and just didn't have it together. Really, the logic was not formed yet. All I knew is that I needed to put one stick down in front of the other one and make sure they didn't hit each other. That's about it. Everything else was like, yeah, and what else,
But you had to be doing like 7 to 10 gigs a week, right?
If you threw in how many times we were on the bandstand,
Yeah.
oh man, Tuesday night you had a minimum of between 4 and 5 shows a night.
Wow.
So it was like you're gonna learn something
Yeah.
or die trying.
Yeah.
So it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which meant that if it's 4 or 5 shows a night, maximum there would be one on Sunday in the afternoon around 2:30, and that's called the matinee. So you had 6 shows on Sunday,
Holy crap.
and you're doing that for 4 weeks. Then you have 2 or 3 days to go to the next location
Yeah.
and do it again. So yes, you will learn. You will play well.
But those were the good and lucky musicians. I mean,
Yeah.
you had to have musicians who were out of work then because
Yes.
they just didn't have the chops or they just weren't at the level and they were like a third or fourth call.
All of the above, Rad. And one more important thing, which is still, and I'll never, I resign myself to saying I will never understand it. They were just stuck on drugs, man. So they were, for whatever the reason was, it's either alcohol was the main big one. It wasn't, I mean, the other stuff they could hardly afford. So if they took the marijuana, okay, but the harder things, the cocaine, I thought those things were very expensive. So these guys already had no money. And what was happening is that the control of the races, the Jim Crow scene was very heavy. So a cop in plain clothes could easily walk up to you and say, hey, man, you sound so good, man. Here, have some of this and, you're going to sound even better. Poor cat's depressed or just need somebody, because musicians are not necessarily overall very strong people. They just want acknowledgement for what they do. They have a gift. They want to share. They want to be told, you belong. Okay, got it. So here's some more stuff that'll make you feel even better about yourself. Here, take this. Of course, you take it. The guy says, now you're under arrest. So now you go to jail. Okay? Beaten within an inch of your life or whatever is done. For a different reason. They needed people who would work pretty much for free for the system. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole other. So a lot of jazz musicians, and then when they come out, they're destroyed. They need this stuff. They're hooked. Incredible cats that never would see the light of day because they were not strong enough to work through it.
Sure. So you have to really have a strong character as well and be able to resist.
I would even say, yeah, you had to have that character, that will that says, I need to do this. I mean, or you had to have something in your mind that said, I got to get from point A to point B so that point C will be stable. Or something that's going on in my life that I need to send money home or do something to have a family. A lot of these cats just came with no idea what they could get out of life. And of all places, the worst place to do that is in New York City. New
Absolutely.
York City back then, they had the pick of the litter, man. This
Right.
was it made Vegas didn't almost in a certain way didn't exist. It was like, yeah, so what? Vegas, so what? But it was about the music.
Yeah.
And LA was more like going out to that was when these guys went and said, well, yeah, maybe I'll retire and
Yeah.
I'll have a white picket fence and a little hot cottage, the old lady and some kids and the dog and blah blah blah, and we'll
Yeah.
go a flower bed. That's it.
Gotcha.
And it was a small community of musicians. And they played that way. They were very protected because they had Disney. They had Warner Brothers, they had MGM, they had Republic, they had all these movie sound stages, and so they went out there to do that. And by the way, there was Howard, I forget his last name, Howard Rumsey's jazz. It had a club on the water, man. It was a great club. But when musicians from the East went out to play there with musicians from the West, most of those cats who were playing from the West would sit down to listen to the guys and wouldn't get on the bandstand with these cats because the guys in the East were hungry. They came to destroy. I mean, it wasn't like they came to blow away people, but their chops were so much above the level of most of the cats on the West Coast that there wasn't a question to that.
So it was such a great disparity because you had New York was the Mecca, and you had so many gigs all the time, and you were always playing. And if you actually cared about your instrument and you had a good attitude, you could develop to the highest level.
Yeah,
and then you could go out there and you could eat those West Coast guys alive.
Well, but and that's the problem. So you would go out there to eat those West Coast guys alive, but that wasn't putting food on the table for you.
Gotcha.
No matter how well you played, that was better than them.
Yeah,
they got the gig.
Yeah,
they were the guys who were the contractors. They got double what you got, whatever that was, and they decided that. So it was about, I got this gift. Where do I go from here? What do I do with it? So a lot of the cats in New York then up and went back out on the road with Basie, Ellington, blah, blah, blah. And just going back and forth until it was killing them,
Yeah.
Because they had no place else to go.
Right. And you said in another interview I was reading that around 68, the whole scene was changing.
Yes, it was.
That was the end of the birth of cool in 68.
Yeah.
And,
and what was happening is that a lot of the musicians, all competent players, man, were just trying to figure out, well, no one really wants me to do the jingle thing. If I do the jingle thing, and you could make some serious bucks. There were guys that were making $1 million at that time a year just doing jingles. But the problem was you had to be in the studio for an hour, maybe 20 minutes maximum for a jingle to put the music down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just one. So let's say you did 4 or 5 of those a day, okay? What you were getting for that at the time, a recording studio 3-hour session at the time was like $65 for 3 hours. That's it. Okay. A jingle, $15 for the first hour. And maybe another $20. No, not $20. Another $10 for the next possible 20 minutes. This is this is like the commercial marketing companies, Young and Rubicam, and all these other companies. Mm-hmm. They're doing Kellogg's cornflakes, Wrigley spearmint gum, blah 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 blah. I did a commercial one time for Cert's breath mints. And it was after I did another commercial. I did a commercial for, let's say, hypothetically, a Wrigley Spearmint gum commercial.
Yeah.
And the producer said, "Hey, Billy, what are you doing right now?" I said, "Oh, I'm just packing up, man. I may have had a session at Rudy Van Gelder's about 2 hours later, Creed Taylor. So I was going to get a sandwich and then head to New Jersey. Could you just hang here for a minute?" I said, "Okay," because you never wanted to say no. And I said, he says, "Don't worry, man. I got something that might be really cool for you. It takes no time at all." So I said, "Okay." So you never brought a drum set. You always brought snare drum, cymbal bag, sticks, and everything else. They had a bass drum that they tuned a certain way that they wanted to have it. And that was it. So I'm putting all my stuff away, cymbal bag and everything. Guy comes over and says, "Okay, just put this stuff down over here." They set up a 47 mic in the middle of the room. And he said, "Okay, just put on these headphones and you're going to listen to this. And when you hear two mints in one," he said, I want you to do this." I said, "What is it?" He says, two mints in one." I said, "Okay, what else?" He said, "That's it, man." That was a jingle I did, maybe, trying to be right, about 1970 something, 71.
Mm-hmm.
I got my last jingle check in 2004 or 5. It came every 6 months to a jingle check. It started out, the first check was $13.
Mm-hmm.
The height of it all, when it was being really used all over the United States, or Canada, wherever, you get a $500 check, man.
Man.
So, and it was just, that's just one jingle. So over time, I would get every year I'd have to go or I wouldn't say every year, every 3 months, I get a shoebox full of checks, like Florsheim Shoebox Company.
Yeah.
Full of checks for jingles that were residual royalties for just playing on a
Bop, bop, bop.
That's it. And that's it. And this would come in, it would be like $25. But you start to add those checks in the shoebox, you couldn't add the amount because everything was always different.
Yeah.
But if you add the amount of checks just in envelopes, maybe let's call it 300 to 400 checks.
Yeah.
Every 3 months, $15, $500, $400. American Airlines or Class A recordings, Class A accounts, man, you'd be getting. And this is just the small, tiny musician's fee. It's not, if God help, if you get on camera, SAG, Screen Actors Guild, it goes up tenfold from what you were getting for that one thing, for 30 seconds of your visual, because everybody has to have the same thing. So as soon as that clicks in, now whatever, if it was $100, you got $1,000 check.
Oh my God!
And just because, so put me on. All you have to do is be shown. And all of a sudden you're in this jingle.
Right. So you had to get in with the supervisors.
Well, yeah, that's it, and that's
the
where
key.
the problem was, man. That's where the problem was, because of course you'd have a contractor, and the contractor contracted all the musicians. He got the best people, his uncle, his brother, nepotism. And it was what it was, So it tended to drive a lot of us out because all I'm doing is all day that. So now I'm not playing. So then you start to figure out where the history of a band like the Thad Jones Mel Lewis band originated. Thad Jones, Mel Lewis, every guy in that band did that. Not only did they do that during the day, they were either with they were recording for Johnny Carson's Tonight Show, or they were doing this. There was the Channel 7 Symphony Orchestra, or there was the CBS Symphony Orchestra, and they were recording all these things for radio, for this and that and all. And then, but they never got a chance to really play.
Right.
So the idea was to put a band together on a dark night. The dark night in New York City is Monday. So they would go down to the Vanguard, and Max Gordon said, well, you guys, you mind if you just, hang, play a little bit, Nobody here. Max, the place is open, and then he's got jam session on Monday night because nobody's coming in there. Yeah. So they kicked out the jam session, put in a 15-piece band of all studio musicians who had no place else to go, except one place before that. And that would be in the afternoon at a place called Jim and Andy's. And Jim and Andy's was a club, not a club, but a bar. So Jim and Andy's would have been, I'm going to say 56th Street between 8th Avenue and Broadway, something like that. Most closer to 8th Avenue. You go in there, you would find all these phones hanging, and each one was an answering service. Your girl, my girl, Billy's answering service, radio registry, and it would go on like this for different musicians. And so when those guys got a call, they'd get a call, and then the registry, the service would call Jim and Andy's, which was a bar and also a restaurant for most of these cats who were in between doing dates, in between the studios, to say, "Where's Mello? Well, where's Thad? I don't see his schedule here. It just seems like he's free, and we just got something. Okay, what is it?" And Jim or Andy would answer the phone and say, "Okay, he ain't around."
Amazing.
What do you need? It looks like Mel says that he can't do it right now, but is Billy there? And I'd be there, man, because I knew about this already. I'd be sitting around having meatballs and spaghetti or something, and they'd say, "Billy, Mel says you need to go over to what was it, 50 studio so 52nd Street, and fill in for him until he shows up." And so I'd get the date, and either Mel would give me, something to just fill in so he didn't lose the date, something like that. Next thing you know, I was going from there down to fill in for him and many other guys, Grady Tate, just playing until they showed up because they were doing something else.
Man, you should write a book, Billy. Write a book about this. It's just, you have stories that I've never heard. It's just insane, incredible. This is like 68 or 69 you're talking about. This is all the way through. I was still doing this quietly because Grady had a really bad back, and I was filling in for Grady in 1968 in 1967 and actually while I was still in the Army, I was filling in for Grady with Billy Taylor. Okay.
And so I was moonlighting my buns off because I was earning $122 a month. And then I would get a check from Billy for a concert at, say, Smith College or something like that because Grady couldn't make it because he had a bad back. And the check would say $750. And I'd go, "Hello? Wait."
Huge money back then.
Yeah. I was like, how? I said, "Just take it and be quiet, And young as I was, how? No. Don't say anything more. I'll take the check and tear it up. Yeah.
That's it. You know nothing. Just take it.
Just take it and make sure you just go to the bank and pay the bills at home. I mean, that's it.
Right.
And you start to learn and you see and you watch, and you never know. You get a call. Somebody says, "Who's at the bar?" I said, "Cobham." "Okay, yeah, cool. Can you get him to come down to Madison Square Garden for what?" He said, "Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, and we need him right now just to fill in for the first hour." And go down and look at the book. It's 175 different tunes, and I'm going, and all they want is,
Yeah.
The parade went, inward in the Madison Square Garden. I'm just playing.
Yeah, you learn to shut up and take it.
Just take it, man.
Just take
Go.
it.
But after a while, you want to do more. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
There we are.
Hey, did you ever audition for the Tonight Show band or?
No, I never auditioned for it.
No.
I didn't have to. I just filled in.
You didn't want to?
I mean, I don't want to stay there. No, I want to play. Because if I'm not, I just filled in once or twice again for Grady or Grady, who was supposed to fill in for. Oh man, so many different people had that. There was one key cat, and I know he played double bass, and I can't.
Well, that was
remember
before Ed Shaughnessy, right?
No, this was before Ed Shaughnessy. Yeah. Sometimes Grady would fill in for Ed, and then Grady was going to fill in for Ed. I can't do it, but Ed was also sick, so I ended up doing it.
Yeah, cool.
John was the right person. For me, he was the right person at the time for what was happening with me. My trio was him and Dougie Roush. This was before George Duke came into the picture, which was also very unique for me. I was very much thankful for the opportunity to work with Dougie, because he would play from Caravanserai. Was like digga 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 digga, and then you hear Rocco, and that was East Bay funk, and Dougie, Rocco, Larry Graham, it was like
Larry Graham.
What was happening up in the north, in the north, the Bay, up there, and in the East Bay, and I was living in Mill Valley. I mean, it was a whole bunch of musicians up there at the time, Garcia and everybody else, Mountain Girl. We all lived down in the same neighborhood.
You played with the Brothers Johnson too, I saw. Yeah.
But that's L.A. That's a whole nother thing.
Gotcha.
and again, very, very. I didn't, to be honest, I didn't play with them. What I was good at was in being in the recording studio and synchronizing with them and dropping in my impression of what they were playing and adding to it in my own way. So I got a lot of work that way. And they were nowhere to be found when I was playing. And then it turned out that what I had played was too much for what they had in mind, what Quincy Jones had in mind. He'd been walking around with these tracks for years, maybe a couple of years. Didn't know what to do with them for sure. He felt that they were so futuristic that he didn't know what to do. So he tried me, and then finally he came to the idea that, who could play this probably real well was Harvey. It was Mason, and he just dropped it right in. Boom. Nobody ever thought about Harvey before to do that. And it opened up a whole new world,
Wow.
Between Harvey and John playing in that particular way.
Hey, you said toward the end of '68, things started getting funkier. Mm-hmm. And that's when you ended up in '69. You did the historic Bitches Brew sessions with Miles, which you explain how you met Miles, which was very fortuitous. When did you first feel or know that fusion was going to be a big thing?
I didn't.
You didn't?
No, I didn't know what fusion was. I mean, I'm not playing, boy, this is new. No, I'm just playing, and the rehearsals that I had with John, with McLaughlin, helped a lot. We rehearsed only a drum and guitar for honestly, I think about 10 days. Just duet. Going through things every day. We thought that the day would be, a couple hours. We just play together. Next thing you know, 10 hours later, we were still there, trying this, that, or the other thing. In a halfway, how could it? The building was supposed to be demolished, but they hadn't decided yet, and they didn't have an okay from the mayor's office. Mm-hmm. So we had to learn how to run the elevator ourselves, going up and down. From the ground to the fifth floor, and we'd play on the fifth floor, just drums and this was in Green Street in the Village, nothing else on the block. That was the only thing living in these buildings were rats, and we were just playing.
So but the rats liked the music.
Well, they never complained, you know.
That's good.
Everybody, you know, so we came in, we played, we left, and learned a lot, man. Learned a lot playing there with John, and then John said it might have been all 10 days that we were playing together that everybody else started to show up. Then who came next? Jerry. Uh, Goodman came in, had no idea what he did, and a lot of things I became aware of 20, 30 years after we stopped working together.
No kidding.
Damn, he was doing that? Amazing. You know, and it would just go hands down, unbelievable stuff. It was just phenomenal. And we made a record with Charlie Hayden called "My Goals Beyond" back then, and that was really special. But we also, John and I, made another record with where we made with Miroslav Vitos, and we backed up a poet, a French cat, but I have it around here somewhere, and that was before "My Goals Beyond."
So Rick Lord and Jan came later after Jerry?
After Jerry, Jan, because Jan was on the road with Sarah Vaughan. And so who's missing? Oh, we didn't have a bass player. So John was kicking a lot of people around, but I ended up, the cat that seemed, I didn't understand why he got him.
Rick Lord.
I played with him, and that was Rick.
Because he knew him, supposedly.
He knew Rick, but the thing is that Rick represented stability.
Right.
Is everything just calm right down. You know?
Right.
And so the matchup for me and Rick was really great because we would listen to each other very well, very strong. And Rick was right on the money, man. He was in for everything. He was all in for it all.
Because John originally wanted Tony Levin, I heard, but he couldn't get him. That's why he ended up getting Rick.
Well, another reason why I couldn't get him probably was my fault because I didn't hear it, you know. But I never said anything. But about it. I didn't know that until you told me.
Yeah.
Just this minute, what I was thinking was that I wasn't a fan of Tony Levin's at that time.
Yeah.
That was the Dreams thing. And then Tony didn't need this band. Tony was, he was working with just about everybody. And he had a different kind of approach, even though it was pretty busy from what I understand.
Yeah.
But I just didn't hear it. And I don't think that Tony would have taken kindly to the atmosphere that was generated in the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and that would have been John's fault anyway.
Right.
So Tony would have left.
If someone had asked you, why did you leave the Mahavishnu Orchestra? And you told them, I didn't leave, I got fired.
I didn't, yeah.
And but John fired everybody. He changed the whole band. So, Mike, why was John so changeable back in those days? Why did he want to change
the
everything?
Instructions of his guru.
Oh, wow. Really? The guru was in his ear, basically, saying that you had to change this and change that. If you look on
the record and you see who the publishing company is, then you'll understand.
Man. Because I said to myself, this is like one of the greatest bands in history. Why do you want to fix something that isn't broken? Why do you... This was incredible. The first incarnation of the Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Well, what you're saying is correct. But did you know that his guru told him to put that band together?
No, I didn't know that.
It wasn't John's idea.
Wow. Incredible. I had no idea.
So then you start to see John was told to put together a band with the greatest musicians he felt that he could play with.
Yeah.
That's how he found me and Jerry and Jan and Rick.
However, I heard that he wanted Jean-Luc Ponty first before Jerry.
He was thinking about it. And then the problem was, again, Ponty didn't need him. He already had his own thing going on.
Yeah.
So there would have been a conflict there. Mm-hmm. Ponty, so I mean, it was like trying to find, again, management, Miles, the people that fit, that work together. You want to have that happening.
Yeah.
And if you can't have that happening, you got a problem.
Yeah. Now, how did that band change when you went back with them in 1984? John called you,
but
apparently.
but the band hadn't changed, and I wasn't with them in 1984.
But he call you for a recording and also
We
for a
were going to
tour?
record and tour.
Yeah.
We recorded some music, but it was with the wrong. This was with Bill Evans and a cast to be named later. I mean, people. Bill Evans, the saxophone player. None of that stuff made any sense to me.
Right, right.
What was really wrong? I felt that it could have worked. My big thing was that we didn't have a chance to function together. There was a lot of conflict. Just the vibe was wrong, workable, and what proved it was that at the point where I said I didn't work with the Mahavishnu Orchestra at that point, I found out that the Mahavishnu Orchestra was on the road without me by a technician at Montreux who said, "Why aren't you here?" And I was at home waiting to go to rehearsal in Paris, and they were already touring with Danny, I forget Danny's name, who played in San Lorenzo with the Pat Metheny band. And that's how I found out that no one has ever told me why that happened. And John, he can't because he's embarrassed by it. I mean, I would imagine he doesn't want to go there. There's too many other things that have happened that would make things really not very, very likely for anyone.
It seemed like a very dysfunctional situation and a breakdown of communication on many levels.
Well, I think you're probably right.
Really quick, I wanted to ask you about this Billy Cobham time machine.
Okay.
What made you want to put this together now and bring back those great musicians after a production of 50 years ago?
Well, bring back the music, but bring back musicians of this time to play the music of
that time.
Almost 50 years ago.
Yeah.
This is what would happen. It's always with music, it's always saying, okay, we did this, but what would happen if we did this with them?
Right.
How would they view it? It's a work in progress. I heard some stuff that I never heard before, and the Blue Note. I went, it ain't there yet. We got a ways to go, but it's coming. It's coming. I had some ideas. I believe in this idea of playing linearly, but within the chord changes.
Okay.
So I have 3 horns, and what's important is that it's the person that you don't see on stage. That's the technician. He has to learn the music.
Right.
If he understands the music, he will balance things out. So you have a flautist, you have a trombonist, and you have a trumpet player. How to blend them in, even though they're not playing the same line together, they are playing in harmony.
Yes.
So you have didn't do it, and all of this but it's all in the same range.
Right. You had a great mix that night.
Foundation,
When I went to see you at the Blue Note, it was a great mix. I told Will Lee that.
Thank you.
Afterwards, they did a really great job. I still, am amazed by how you write these songs playing a rhythm instrument. How do you write horn parts, etc.?
It's within us. It's not from the drums, Rad.
Gotcha.
Okay, you have to respect the player and the instrument that the player works with.
Yeah.
And you try to find a way to get that individual to express your ideas through his or her instrument, in sync with what's happening. I just set up. I'm their click. And I'm their breathing apparatus.
Sure, but what I'm thinking is like you're writing Stratus from scratch, and you're writing, like The Women in My Life, and you're only playing a rhythm instrument, and you have this rich harmonic structure.
But you draw the sound from the rhythm instrument. You don't play it as a rhythm instrument. It has a tone.
Gotcha.
Drum has 2 heads in this instance. and they have a responsibility to vibrate and cooperate with each other. So the tone on the top is the tone. Okay. For how long it's going to be kept depends on how well the instrument is made. But on the other side, it's the type of tone you have, the depth of tone, the bottom instrument, the bottom head, that bottom head, you can go boom, 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 or boom, boom. It vibrates at different frequencies in relationship to the top head. Because when you hit the top head, you push down on the head with the stick, and then you draw it back. So it's a boo, and that makes the head and the bottom vibrate.
Right. Now, do you notate the music while after you write it? Are you notating it? Or are you having someone assist you with it?
Oh, I write the melodies and the harmony for the band, but not for the drum set.
No, for the band I'm talking about.
For the band, yeah.
You're writing it.
In some situations, one can put together a pattern that is generally in tune with what the band is playing. That continues to repeat itself.
Yeah.
So that's going to took it. As I said, montuno, boom, 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 and this continues.
Yeah.
And it creates this loop. Okay. They imply that pattern. It could be. Not everybody. It could be. So everybody's got a commitment to the present.
It's just a mind-boggling skill that you have as a drummer, because not very few drummers, to me, have that skill. So I applaud you to be able to think that deeply.
Check the Louis Bellson archives.
Right.
A great composer he was.
Yeah. Now, when you were with Mahavishnu Awakenings, for example, did that happen organically while you were jamming, or was that these like...
No, that was a pattern, that was something that John had written, a theme.
Okay.
And so he had all of that together, and he knew that he needed something.
Yeah.
Then you go, ba, ba. It could happen any place.
Yeah.
So you watch, multitasking.
Right.
You watch, you listen. You know, ba, ba, and this is still going like this. Multitasking, and you're waiting. Sometimes it's 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, ba, ba, da, or it could be 2, 3, da, da. Ba, ba, da, you know, everybody knows.
It was incredible. You know, even Phil Collins said that one time. Some of the most incredible drumming he's ever heard on Awakening.
I'm thinking inside that, yeah. And I'm still watching him.
Right.
And then all he did was that.
And I bet you a lot of that happened in that 10-day period where you and John were just rehearsing.
I mean, that was the ideas that were spawning, you see. Yeah. How to do this and not get bored with it, you know. So, yeah, we don't play the same tune all the time, but when we do play that same tune, does it have to be the same way all the time?
No.
And it was just like, no talk, you just kind of do. Yeah. Or lots of things that would happen. Last thing, and I've got to split, but there's one thing that we used to do a lot together was play odd meters starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you start to think that way, it becomes then a phrase. You see?
Yes, I do see.
And it locks it just locks in. It becomes a loop.
Right. and that becomes an A or a B section. Then you move on to the next section, and you put it all together, and you have a song.
Bang, gone.
Yeah. What do you have going on for the rest of the year, Billy? Last question. 2025.
Going on for the next year, we're playing a festival in England that I continue to forget its name. Next month. I'm playing the Blue Note in Milano for a couple of days.
Great.
And then it's easy days because of the hips, trying to get my hips back up and running.
Yeah.
I'm working on that slowly, got my life cycle, and I'm working on that.
Fantastic.
So I don't go out as much as I would normally go. But festivals here or there, and mostly in Europe until next year. I don't expect to see the United States shores because a little bit too much stress. I don't have.
I'm glad that I caught you this time.
Yeah, so we got it.
Yeah. How long do you think you can go on like this? Do you think you can go on another 5 years?
Oh, I don't. It's all I can say is I go until I stop. Whatever that is, I'm thankful with it. That's what it's all about, man. It's not about. This is not a race.
No. Just do it as long as you could enjoy it, and it still makes sense.
It's about life. At this point in time, it's just about life. That's it.
Yeah. That's how I got exposed to you right here. I still have it right here. I love this record. I always listen to it now and then. Mm-hmm. Billy, thank you so much for coming on. It was wonderful. I would love to speak to you more, but I know that you got to go.
I got to head.
It's fantastic. How can my viewers keep in touch with your touring schedule?
It's
social media, etc.
www.billy-cobham.com. So the dash is in the middle.
Got it. I'll write that on the screen of this video and also include it in the description.
Beautiful.
So people can so my viewers can keep in touch with your schedule.
Yeah. The calendar's there, and it'll keep you up to date with all that's going on.
Right, Billy. Right. Thank you so much. It was an honor and a pleasure.
Have a good evening. All the best.
Great stories.
All right, man. Take care.
I love them. Take care now.
And I have no voice anymore. Thank you very much, everybody. We bid you good night. That's it from us. We'll see you. It's probably tonight already, but we'll see you in the next show. Yeah. We're here. That's all she wrote, folks. Good night.